Mr. Speaker, we've just heard the Honourable Minister for Women stand up and support the report from the Privileges Committee, further stating that because the report has found both the Honourable PM and the Honourable Qereqeretabua are in breach, that it should be supported. In doing so, she, as the Honourable Minister for Women, Children and Poverty Alleviation, is saying that it's okay to be aggressive to anybody as long as you say sorry afterwards. That's what she's suggesting, because that's what the committee has recommended. The committee has recommended that an apology for this behavior somehow exonerates the violence carried out. I'm extremely disappointed, Honourable Speaker, that the Honourable Mrs. Muniwanga and even the Honourable Pramila Kumar stood up and told whatever lies fed to them by Corvus for the preservation of their leader, when just weeks ago they stood there strongly condemning violence in all its forms. I will be very honest, Honourable Speaker. My heart is broken, not simply because the president of my party has been unjustly condemned by fake justice, but because of the circumvention of all that is right, fair and just from this august house, and the signals that we are sending out to the people today who are watching in very intently right now. Moreover, my heart breaks at what we are teaching our young people by this report and the meting out of fake justice that undermines the very core of the rule of law in Fiji. However, as much as I am distraught and bewildered at what transpired from the 9th of August 2019, culminating in this sham report, I would be failing in my duty if I did not speak from my heart. To the young people who are training in law and law enforcement, who are tuning in today via live stream, please get a copy of this report that should be on the Parliament website. It will make for some very interesting reading when you see the verbatim of everyone summoned and the lengths taken to discredit both the footage and eyewitness accounts. I hope all the verbatim are in the report word for word, as the Madam Chair assured our President that it would be. When I was summoned under duress to the committee just this last Tuesday to tell my side of what I witnessed, I was very clear. It was premeditated action against my colleague and party president, Honourable Qereqeretabua. As I say, I was summoned under duress because, as our party leader has detailed, we are not convinced that the use of Standing Orders 134 was justified. The victim in this is Honourable Qereqeretabua, who is an elected member of Parliament and who was assaulted by the Prime Minister in a premeditated fashion, who did not seek redress as those privileged rights are afforded to him as an MP because he chose to pursue a process and report the assault to the police as you directed him to do so on the 9th of August, Honourable Speaker. On that Friday, when the Honourable Qereqeretabua finished responding with his right of reply on his motion on drugs, he sat down and he turned to me and he said he had to be excused as he had an errand to run, and asked me to take his bag up to the opposition chambers if we adjourned for lunch before he returned. Then he left the chamber. After he stood up to leave, I looked across and saw the Honourable Prime Minister leaning to his left and typing on his mobile phone. A few seconds later, the Honourable Prime Minister stood up abruptly and left the chamber via the door immediately to his left. Immediately, Honourable Qereqeretabua also stood up and left the chamber through the swinging doors behind his seat. As I told the Privileges Committee, all the CCTV footage will confirm this. My gut instinct was on high alert that they would accost Honourable Qereqeretabua, so I left the chamber too at approximately 11:38 a.m. using these swinging doors behind my seat, turned right and made for the foyer. As I reached the main parliamentary entrance foyer, in this small passage where there are pamphlet shelves on either side, there stood the Honourable Prime Minister with his back to me. Honourable Qereqeretabua stood facing him whilst police officers stood behind. Honourable Qereqeretabua saw me approaching, put his head down and stepped slightly to his right out of my way. Again, as I said to the committee, CCTV footage will confirm this. By then, the Honourable Prime Minister, who did not see me approaching from behind, did not move. As I passed Honourable Prime Minister, I overheard him ask in a very angry tone in the Tauke language if anyone had seen him, which I took to mean Honourable Qereqeretabua. He said, and I quote, "Salapiwe," unquote. I walked past the Honourable Prime Minister, Honourable Qereqeretabua and the police officers, and took the steps up to the opposition chambers to tell Honourable Qereqeretabua that the Honourable Prime Minister was looking for him. All this can be confirmed by CCTV footage, and I had in fact suggested to the Privileges Committee that they should invite Honourable Qereqeretabua to hear what he had to say. When I reached our office in the opposition chambers, Honorable Tikundua was inside with Mr. Dylan Kava and Mr. Apenisa Motunibebuke, our NFP caucus staff, and I told them what I had just seen and heard. Honorable Tikundua decided he would carry on as he had planned, which was to go to Lami for his appointment. I told Mr. Kava and Mr. Motunibebuke that the three of us should accompany Honorable Tikundua downstairs to his vehicle so that if something happened, at least we could be witnesses. The four of us left the opposition chambers and proceeded down the stairs, intending to go to Honorable Tikunduandua's vehicle parked on Constitution Avenue, which is normally blocked off from the public. Again, CCTV footage will confirm this. An FBC reporter and her cameraman, who I believe to be Pranita Prakash and Apenisa Wangai Randobu, were waiting outside opposition chambers, waiting for Honorable Tikundua, and they joined us as we all descended to the portico entrance to Parliament. Honorable Tikundua walked ahead of me with the two NFP staff. The FBC reporter told her cameraman to keep recording as she hounded Honorable Tikundua to explain what he meant by the word house. Mr. Dylan Kava, our caucus staff, told the reporter repeatedly that standing orders prevented Honorable Tikundua from making public comments while the House was in session. Those FBC reporters were right there when this shameful assault occurred, but what they chose to do about it after it happened is on them. As I approached the bottom of the steps, I was at the rear of the group, and I turned to look for the Honorable Prime Minister just in time to see him emerge from the direction of the main parliamentary chamber. Honorable Tikundua, in the company of our caucus staff, was in the lead and had reached just past the parking spot for the Honorable Prime Minister's vehicle as I lagged a few meters behind, when I heard the Prime Minister shout from the bottom of the green steps, and I quote, "Oiko, Pio, chikubandui keri," unquote. And to translate, "You, Pio, you stay right there." Honorable Tikundua turned around to walk towards the approaching Honorable Prime Minister, who by that time was striding up to him, swearing profusely. The Honorable Prime Minister grabbed the left lapel of Honorable Tikunduandua's coat, pushing him back. I heard something break, and then I saw a pair of sunglasses fall to the ground at Honorable Tikunduandua's feet. Honorable Tikundua stooped slowly and picked them up, all the while the Honorable Prime Minister was swearing at him. Honorable Speaker, please excuse me, God forbid me, and I apologize in advance. This is very hard for me to do, but it must be said. The swears Honorable Prime Minister used included, and I quote, "Daiti tamamu, mangai tinamu, sona lebu, daitiko," unquote. And for those who refuse to understand what that means, I will translate. Have sexual relations with your father, your mother's vagina, an enlarged anus, and have sexual relations with yourself. I also told the committee this, Honorable Speaker. Our caucus staff by now was standing on the adjacent side of the road witnessing all this. I was closer to the commotion, standing less than 5 meters away with my phone in my hand. One of the Honorable Prime Minister's bodyguards walked towards me, pointed at me, and ordered me to put my phone away. I put my hand on my hip and challenged him by retorting, "Excuse me?" He did not reply, but walked back to where the Honorable Prime Minister's tirade was continuing. As this was happening, all the ministerial vehicle drivers, all of the Honorable Prime Minister's bodyguards, and police officers from Parliament were outside and witnessed this. A black-tinted vehicle, registration number VF783, sped in, almost hitting Mr. Kava, and stopped near where this crime was happening. A suited man, who we now understand is a soldier and is a member of the Honorable Attorney General's security detail, walked out of the vehicle. Amidst this melee, absolutely no one stepped in to stop the Honorable Prime Minister. The Honorable Prime Minister warned Honorable Tikundua several times during his tirade, saying, I quote, "Garoni kutiko," unquote, meaning, watch out. Then the Honorable Prime Minister turned and walked away from Mr. Honorable Tikundua towards his waiting vehicle, which was under the portico. CCTV footage will confirm this again. The Honorable Mr. Tikundua, Mr. Kava, Mr. Motunibebuke, and I then got together and decided to return to the opposition chambers. Honorable Prime Minister was still standing by his vehicle when we came alongside. And once again, the Honorable Prime Minister swore at Honorable Mr. Tikundua and warned him before he got into his rear left seat of his vehicle, slammed the door shut, and the vehicle drove off. Honorable Tikondondua, Mr. Kava, Mr. Batunebebuke, and I then returned upstairs to the opposition chambers to decide our next steps, which we decided was for the Honorable Tikondondua and I to return to the chamber and raise the point of order. This is what we did, as shown on live coverage of proceedings on that day and also on Hansard. Following Honorable Tikondondua's point of order and an intervention from Honorable Professor Biman Prasad, the three of us left to meet in opposition chambers. By then, we were alerted that Special Branch of the Fiji Police Force was already interested in the CCTV footage, so at about 12:30 p.m., Mr. Kava and I went downstairs to see the Parliament IT team to ensure the CCTV footage was not going to be tampered with. The Parliament CCTV footage will also confirm that we did this. I met two men standing outside the office to the CCTV footage office, and I asked them if they were Special Branch. They replied yes. I asked them what they were going to do with the footage, and they replied they were there to review it. Before we had even gone to the police to lodge our complaint that Friday afternoon, the Special Branch of Police were already looking at the CCTV footage. From the 9th of August 2019, when the police had supposedly reviewed Parliament CCTV footage, up until the 27th of August 2019, we had had no communication whatsoever from the police as to the status of our complaints. Not only to have an unsigned letter from an ASPE Nandolo sent by Gmail to say, and I quote, "The investigation is now being investigated," unquote. Then, of course, you have the great lengths to which the Fiji First social media and online personas tried to seed doubt in Honorable Tikondondua within moments of that assault occurring. They were also aided by some in the media who created doubt about the assault. But Honorable Speaker, God is good. By God's grace, we were all vindicated when a video emerged online that showed everything, corroborating what we had stated publicly. Honorable Speaker, why have I gone to such great lengths to detail again what I have already told the police and the Privileges Committee? It is to tell the truth to the people and honor my oath as an elected member of this august House. Honorable Lenora Qereqeretabua, who is also the Minister for Defence and National Security, would have viewed copies of our police documents that we submitted as evidence to the Privileges Committee. And I wonder if the Honourable Member is aware of Section 129 of the Constitution, and how on one hand, he is directly responsible for the Commission of Police and the police force, but on this occasion of the Privileges Committee, he was passing judgment on Honorable Tikondondua, the victim of a blatant and premeditated criminal offence. I am reminded again of Honorable Qereqeretatua's words when he spoke, as he does in his agitated, extremely loud and theatrical way, against Honorable Tikondondua's motion on drugs. And he said, I quote, "When I was sitting here last night, Mr. Speaker, it reminded me of the battlefield when Goliath, the Philistine giant, was challenging the Israelites. Give me a man." But there was no man. All male organs intact, but no one was man enough to stand up and fight the evil. The motion last night called for men to stand up and fight the evil that we have in society. Men are meant to love everyone. I wanted to speak to the men, Mr. Speaker, sir, but there were no men last night. No courage, no boldness, ducked under the table, unquote. Those were words imputing improper motives on Honorable Tikondondua, but I put the question now to the Honorable Qereqeretabua through you. Where is that man today? Is he hiding behind a stitched-up report and now self-righteously condemning an innocent man? Mr. Kava, Mr. Batunebebuke, both were eyewitnesses, just as I was. They received summons to appear, but they were never asked to give their statements. I am compelled to raise this analogy to this august House, that when you vote for this grossly irregular report and its recommendations of fake justice, we are saying that all other crimes that happen in this House between MPs, be it rape or murder or theft, you will bind this House to endorse it as acceptable for the Privileges Committee to be used to cover it up. The reality is that this VIP treatment will only be rolled out for only two, not the rest. Today, when you vote you will bind this House to endorse this behavior as an acceptable norm. And we will sit on this side of the House, on our side of the House, and continue to watch you as you have sleepless nights and stressful nights responding to what you are manifesting today with your words and actions and vote. Today, when you vote, you will bind your mouth shut to any narrative about violence against another individual. You have no moral authority now to speak on it. You will bind your mouth shut to any talk about feeling protected or safe or secure. I am an elected MP. I do not and will not no longer feel safe or secure about being in any space where the Honourable Prime Minister is. But I will not have my lips bound against speaking the truth, Honourable Speaker. Today, when you vote, you may think you have a clear conscience because of partisan loyalties, but you are in effect binding yourself as standing with the Honourable Prime Minister, cheering him on as he aggressively committed the offence of assault on Honourable Tikondua. All those that will vote on it, including those who enable this travesty of fake justice from outside of this parliamentary chamber, you will all stand condemned in the court of public opinion. But that is your choice and also your consequences to live with. We at NFP knew full well that the Privileges Committee would be a farce so as to undermine the work of the police. That is why we did not opt to pursue that process. Imagine our shock and surprise when the committee suggested reconciliation or an apology should be on the table in the face of a criminal act. And then, of course, you have today's Fiji Sun blaring out that nonsense as well. I am quite sure that the Chief Legal Advisor to Government knows this well, but Section 154 of the Criminal Procedure Act spells it out very clearly, that the offence of common assault or assault occasioning actual bodily harm or criminal trespass or damaging property, the court can only promote reconciliation. The court can only promote reconciliation, apologies, and other measures after the perpetrator is charged. I am left further wondering if the Privileges Committee felt it at all appropriate to recommend counselling, especially for anger management. In light of what is about to be agreed on by the government majority, I would respectfully submit, Honourable Speaker, that the House Committee should be convened without delay to ensure that our safety, security and well-being as MPs with regards to counselling is instituted without delay. In closing, Honourable Speaker, I know for sure that today only one man in this House can hold his head high, because only one man defended the rule of law and the rights of the people and acted with integrity and diligently carried out his responsibilities as he swore to do in his oath to the people of Fiji. There is a salient quote that says, Mr. Speaker, "In a room where people unanimously maintain a conspiracy of silence, one word of truth sounds like a pistol shot," unquote. Given the seriousness of the actions of the Honourable Prime Minister, on Friday, 9th August, and his high office, I strongly support the amendment to this motion and as moved by the Honourable Tuisawau. And I thank you, Honourable Speaker.